Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Craig Burley,
Us again.
Stevie Nicol here in the studio. Us again. We've got Frank LeBeouf joining us later as well. But let's get started with Monday Night Football. It was Fulham taking on Chelsea. Frank LeBeouf. Let's actually start there, shall we, Craig? Because he'd looked good. You could tell he'd been rested this summer. And then that happened.
Rested? You mean dropped?
Dropped this summer. Yeah. But and then this happens,
well,
yeah.
Positives for Chelsea. It's a win away from home, particularly, but first game of the season. Goal for Morgan Rogers, big signing in the summer. Goal for João Pedro, who should have gone to the World Cup with Brazil. Ridiculous decision to take the likes of Neymar in his current state of fitness, and João Pedro left at home. So maybe a point to prove there. And Cole Palmer, as you mentioned, we saw Phil Foden at the weekend playing for Man City, looking to sort of, take that second part of his career and kick on again. And I think Cole Palmer's in the same situation. A player who has, maybe a year or two ago, was the go-to player for England and for Chelsea, who was just doing so many great things, and then for whatever reason lost his way a little bit, whether it was a change of shape in the team or change of manager or whatever it was. Talk about him maybe want to go back up north. That's gone away. And for the first game of the season, he had everything that the Cole Palmer of a year or so ago had. He was sharp. Every time he got on the ball, he dropped a shoulder, picked a pass, scored a goal. Did lots of good things. Unfortunately, it looked as if he had a little injury coming off. But that's a big positive. Was it a couple of days ago we were talking, saying Xabi Alonso was really good at Leverkusen at making Florian Wirtz his playmaker, and not building the team around him, but finding a way to get the best out of Florian Wirtz. And we were saying if he can find a way to get the best out of Cole Palmer, it's going to go a long way to maybe mask over some of the other issues in this Chelsea side that we're going to talk about. So that was one of two or three really big positives for Xabi Alonso today.
Doesn't seem to be many issues in the final third at the moment for Chelsea.
No, dream. Absolute dream for any coach. You want your goal scorer, obviously that's usually your centre forward, but your other playmakers to either be assisting or scoring goals as well. And to have your front three all score, away from home, 3 goals. Thanks very much. I mean, that's just a dream. Unfortunately, there are two sides to the game, and the other side is defensively. And yes, clearly, looking at the highlights, we have pinpointed Sanchez. But at the same time, we've got to pinpoint the back three. He is playing with a back three. And Lacroix, I think, is the only one that's really used to it. Collywell and Achupong, I don't think are used to that particularly. So they're going to have to figure that out, because that could have cost them 2 points. The chance that Anthony Robinson had is just a shambles defensively. And when you've got 3 centre-backs, there has to be somebody there. I mean, where they were, I really don't know. You saw the size of the hole that the ball was cleared into. And then, of course, Sanchez, absolute no man's land. I mean, really, he was lucky. Otherwise, really, you could maybe stick a finger at him for what could have been 3 goals. So, yeah, going that way, fantastic. Going that way, not good enough.
Of course, Lacroix at Crystal Palace was in a very well-drilled back three that Oliver Glasner had played for quite some time. He had Mark Gay on one side, he had Chris Richards on the other, and they played together for a long time. So this is going to be a little bit of a work in progress in terms of, I don't know what the personnel in the end will be. It'll be Lacroix and whoever it is. But whatever it is, the goalkeeper is an issue. And it has been an issue for quite some time. So a lot of positives, but if you're a Chelsea fan at this game or leaving Craven Cottage tonight, you'd be saying, yeah, a lot to look forward to, but I tell you what, I'm worried about the goalkeeper. I think that'll be a lot of conversation amongst the Chelsea fans.
He lost 52 goals last year, pretty much, Sanchez. Now, obviously, there are players in front of him, but 52 goals in a season, it's not good enough if you want to be challenging for the Premier League.
So Chelsea start the season with a win, Frank, and of course that is a positive, but how do you feel about the goalkeeper and the defence right now?
Well, shaky as everybody else, and when you're a defender, you know at the back that you don't have a Barthez or I don't know, a great goalkeeper. You don't feel confident, and therefore you get shaky. We see on the second goal, Caldwell should have gotten the ball with a header and didn't. And behind, you have nobody to save you when you make a mistake, and it's hard to be a goalkeeper because you have nobody behind you. But we know Sanchez. We have known him for a while, and we know that he can do mistakes. But when you play for a club like Chelsea, and when you see what they do offensively, and Craig was mentioning it, where it was perfect, the three guys at the front, and as Stevie said, there's 3 goals from the 3 at front, away from home, that's great. But you cannot waste that by making such mistakes. King's goal, yeah, it's a good shot, but why you open up? First pass, you have to be there. You have to control that. You cannot consider goal on that side. You can consider goal on the other side, and it's impossible. You play for Chelsea. That's what it is, and there is an issue. And Xabi Alonso has to find somebody else really, really quickly, because that's been an issue for a while, and we don't want to see that anymore. With all due respect for Sanchez, we tried, it doesn't work, and when it's important, he's not there to save the club. So yeah, they have to find another one. But I was very pleased by the way by Lacroix and how he settled down and even work on offensively, gave an assist, but he was strong at the back as well. Hopefully Colwill can follow and they can make a good pair. But if they play a 3, it's going to take a little while to adjust, because on the 2 side, that's not very nice.
But if you go on.
No, he had success at Leverkusen, not all the time, but a lot of the time playing that back 3. Lacroix was in the French squad and played in the World Cup. That's how good he was at Crystal Palace, albeit the likes of Konate and that had been struggling for form. But I think on a positive side, you're licking your chops if you've got Cole Palmer in that kind of mindset. And not only that, the load is sort of lifted a little bit on João Pedro because Morgan Rogers is there now. Morgan Rogers, who he'll be making those runs from a little deeper. He's a powerful player. He's a strong runner with the ball. So all of a sudden, you're sort of multifaceted in terms of your attack. Last year it was, 2 wide players. Pedro Neto, be it Santos, or even maybe Garnacho at times, which was totally inconsistent. And a lot of times João Pedro, because Cole Palmer wasn't playing particularly well, João Pedro was trying to do a lot of it on his own. If he can get that help from Palmer, he'll certainly get it from Rogers. Rogers is always going to be making those runs, getting into the box late, getting on the end of things, driving forward. As Stevie was saying during the game, he just does look a little strange in a blue jersey. It does look a little weird, but he's made this big move now. They've all scored on their debut. So Xabi Alonso knows what he's getting pretty much from those guys up front. What he doesn't know is what his midfield balance is going to be and what his back line is going to be. But I think that ultimately, if Chelsea are going to have a really, really good season, I think they will have to go, a bit like Tottenham, really. I mean, Tottenham are going to have to sign a goalkeeper. I mean, that was a disaster at the weekend for them. But Kinski's not good enough. No. And as Frank said, we've seen the movie with Robert Sanchez now. He'll do some great things, but they're outweighed with all the bad stuff he does, whether it's with the ball at his feet or the saves that he should have made tonight that he didn't make. That's not going to keep somebody like Xabi Alonso in the job. So, interested to see if they go and sign somebody between now and the end of the transfer window in that position, because I think they really need to.
Sanchez is one of those guys that gets the manager sacked. You're ready to drop him, and he makes a worldie, and you think, oh, he's going to turn the corner. It's just like a cycle, and it doesn't look like changing. And the only way it's going to change is if you change the person.
Well, we're 1 round in, so obviously it would be very early to make any huge assumptions right now in terms of the title race.
Why are the bookies?
And how much is just City?
Why do the bookies still have Liverpool up there?
Well, Chelsea moved ahead of Liverpool with this result.
Yeah, but even fourth, even looking at that, Liverpool sitting 4th favourites. Why? Somebody tell me why, please. Can you help me?
Because there are actually not that many good teams. Arsenal apart, we're all kind of getting what we thought we may get in match day 1.
Right.
Well, I say that. We knew Liverpool still had some issues at the back. We were maybe a little surprised by Man United, or a lot surprised by Man United, but that was, again, you're taken aback a little bit with that. Chelsea's far... Look, it's quite simple. The only team that are even close to being the finished article are Arsenal. Yeah. The only one. The rest of them, they're all dancing around in the dark, trying to figure out with either a new manager or new players or whatever it is. And if I'm Arsenal, And I think
Loving it.
Theo Walcott, who was on the other night on the show, said the only thing that is going to be in Arsenal's way, you'd imagine at the moment, is Arsenal itself. Yeah. Because they are the strongest team, they're the strongest squad, by a stretch, by a long stretch. Now, things can change. Of course they can change, and it's very, very early. But it's hard to see, where Arsenal, even after one game, where they're going to trip up and where the rest are going to really steamroller all the rest of the teams in the league. It's hard to see that.
We've sat here over the weekend and we've spoken about City and we've spoken about Chelsea today and we've spoken about Liverpool.
Man United.
And Man United, and we've sat here for...
Villa got walloped.
Between 5 and 10 minutes talking about the things that they need to get better at. And then when we spoke about Arsenal the other day, it took us about 30 seconds to come up with something, or to come up with a reason why they might struggle. That's how far ahead they are.
Do you agree with this, Frank?
You know what? Yes, you know what? I was thinking about while the guy was talking that we did during the former show, that we were absolutely right. We're not that bad. We're pretty good at predicting stuff, you know, or maybe it's too obvious. But really, everything we said last week before the first day has been shown by all the clubs. That Arsenal, they're strong, spot on, they know what they do, and the other they don't know. Well, when I saw the goal after 30 seconds from João Pedro, I said, whoa, he's getting good. Well, I know after 15 minutes, I got the other way, and I understood that they were strong in some other parts. So they're still working on the process is still there, and maybe they can be better, of course, and we all hope that. But one club is already ready, is Arsenal. The other one is Brentford. Brentford are ready. They know what they do. They exactly know what they have to do, and they showed it against Spurs. Absolutely fantastic. We know that it's going to be hard all season long to be consistent and everything, but they can surprise because the others, they're not very good. So far, nothing good enough for me to pretend to even finish in second. So hopefully for the Blues, for Chelsea, they're going to be strong at front and everything's going to work. But really, right now, everything we predicted is happening. This is the easiest season for a while to pick a Premier League winner, isn't it?
Yep.
It's a bit like Germany in a sense, isn't it? In the Bundesliga, it's like if you know, I'm not being facetious. Who's not picked Bayern Munich? I know Leverkusen won the league when Alonso was there, but who picked Leverkusen at the start of the season? It happened, but it was an anomaly. Doesn't normally happen. Normally, you go round everybody, and most networks will say Bayern Munich. I haven't heard one person yet tell me, maybe there is somebody out there that said Man City or Liverpool or maybe there is. But I think most people with common sense, everybody's just gone Arsenal and then they're figuring out the rest, where they're all going to finish. And maybe it won't finish like that. I don't know. I mean, I imagine it will. But that's not a good place to be for the Premier League. If Arsenal are going to run away with this, and, you know, it's very early, but I'm looking at the rest of them, and I include Man City at the weekend, who, you know, could easily have lost to Bournemouth at home. Who's going to put the fight up? Spending all this money, but who's going to put the fight up? So I think the early signs are it could be a little concerning in terms of the competitive edge of the Premier League if Arsenal continue to look as dominant as they are. Albeit they played a side that were recently promoted at home in Coventry. There's going to be a lot tougher tests. But I think everybody looking at their squad and what they did last year knows that the others are going to have to plug some huge gaps to make that difference. So this could be a bit of a runaway Premier League season.
Yeah, and it's only round one. Gab and Jules were talking about it on the latest version of their podcast. Check that out right now, wherever you get your pods.
El club decidió que él no se acerque a saludar con sus compañeros a la gente y que la decisión no fue de Julian Alvarez, sino fue del club que tomó la decisión de alejarlo y separarlo para que venga hacia el vestuario.
Sid Lowe is joining us now. Frank Leboeuf still with us. Sid, you were at this game. I know that this is your copy this week for The Guardian as well, and I don't think you even had enough words to say everything that went down at the Metropolitano. So here you go. You've got more words now with us.
Well, I mean, I think the starting point, of course, is that the intensity, the consistency of the whistling is something that I don't think I've seen before. That much of a stadium to be on a player for the entire game in that way. And then, as you say, the really striking one was the moment at the end of the game when he walked off on his own. And now I think what the club, at least on the surface, were trying to do was to protect him from even more whistles, so he doesn't go to that end of the stadium where the more hardcore fans are, that he doesn't have to face up to that, and he walks off the pitch and down the tunnel on his own. But of course, what that does, rather than protecting him, is expose him. And I think what it does is it highlights that this is a problem that really doesn't have an easy solution, that things are really, really broken. And we're in a situation now in which everybody is stuck, and the solution isn't a good one. Barcelona would like to sign Julian Alvarez. Julian Alvarez would like to go to Barcelona, but Atletico Madrid say he's not for sale, and particularly not for sale to Barcelona. Now, I think if Atletico Madrid felt that they could get a good offer for him from someone outside of Spain, then they would be perfectly happy to do that, given the situation. But of course, he would need to agree to that, and at the moment, he's not doing so.
And the word is, Sid, that he's been targeted by Arsenal right now, and that he has spoken to Mikel Arteta. Has there been any talk about that in Spain?
No, this is a recurring theme in Spain, the possibility that Arsenal are the solution to this. But the problem with that is twofold. First of all, obviously, Arsenal would have to put together a package that Atletico Madrid found agreeable, and they would have to be very convinced that Julian Alvarez was the right player for them. And, of course, he wouldn't be coming cheap. The other is, of course, they would have to think very hard, I think, about whether or not they feel that this is the right move, not just in terms of Julian Alvarez's ability, not just in terms of how well he fits into the team, but do we want a player who we know is holding out for Barcelona, who we know isn't necessarily that keen to play in England, and what kind of mindset would he be in if he comes here? And then, of course, related to that, there's the very simple point, which is, do you persuade him to come in the first place? Does he want to, or does he keep holding out in the hope, almost certainly a forlorn hope, that something can be done with Barcelona? I think in a way you look at the things that have been said, you look at the accusations that have been thrown, you look at the amount of pride that is at stake here as well, the sense that Atletico Madrid have of this not just being about saying we don't want to sell Julian Alvarez. This is about we're not going to allow you to try and manipulate us and manoeuvre us into a position, and we're going to turn this into a cause, not just a player. And I think that's one of the reasons why this has a very, very difficult outcome now to fully predict, except that on the face of it, right now, with 8 days still to go in the transfer window, they're going to have to fix things because he's probably going to end up staying.
You know, if the Arsenal thing that Sid talked about there is kind of spot on. You know, somewhere like Arsenal or a club of similar ilk, not in Spain, would be the option that gets him away from the vitriol and out of that club, but not the option that he wants. And that's a difficult scenario for both the player and the buying club, that you're really just getting the guy out, but not getting the guy to go where he really wants to go, because he really wants to go to Barcelona.
And even the reports in London say he's softening his stance.
I mean, I don't... Sid knows more about this whole mess than we do, because he's on the ground. But he's not the first player that ever wanted to leave a club. These things happen. I think it's just a stance now. It looks like a stance from Atletico Madrid, as Sid said, is that we're not the pawn here and just selling to our rivals because you want to go there. And it's just a game of bluff and counter-bluff now. So it's a messy situation, and you're going to end up with a player, if the transfer window closes, staying, that the fans are not going to forget about it. The manager's going to end up probably using him to a certain extent, and the sort of the atmosphere around that. I mean, the atmosphere, I would imagine, with other players should be fine, because these things go on all the time. But what's coming from the stands and from the car park and outside the ground around the scenario will make it very vitriolic. And you do feel that there has to be an end game here that suits everybody involved. Otherwise, it could, be a bit of a mockery on their season, having a player of that stature getting whistled and booed everywhere he goes. It's not a good scene.
But I could understand them taking him out the firing line. In some ways, that makes sense, right? But with 8 days to go in the transfer market, and the only team that are interested, you're not letting them go. You've made it clear pretty much that you're not going to let them go anyway. So not having him standing with the rest of the players is making it worse. Hiding him away isn't going to change anything. He's going to have to face it. You've got a situation like this, with 8 days to go, the likelihood of him moving is pretty small. So they're going to have to get through it. And you know that Simeone wants to use him, because the guy's a good player. He's arguably the best forward they have. But hiding him away isn't going to help it. He's going to have to stand on the field, and he's going to have to face them, and eventually it'll calm down. But it's not going to calm down if you keep hiding him away. So they haven't done him any favours, in my opinion, by what they did. It just looked awful and made it worse.
Frank, the other day you said let him go, but if letting him go means to Barcelona, is that really the best solution for Atleti?
No, of course not. And Atleti is responsible for nothing in that matter. Julian Alvarez engaged the conversation during the World Cup, saying that he wanted to go to Barcelona, and that was his mistake. He has a contract, and you should respect the contract that you signed, and therefore fans are very upset, and they have the right to boo you because you betrayed them. That's what it is. That's the reality of it. But I'm with Stevie. As soon as Atleti decided to keep him, yeah, let's celebrate with the other players, or salute the fans after the game, even if you drew. No, let's do that. And it's going to take a while, maybe before the fans forgive him, and before Julian Alvarez give his best for the club. Remember what happened to Griezmann, and I mentioned that before. He left, came back, was booed, and then finished as a legend as Atleti when he left last season. So maybe it's going to happen the same for Julian Alvarez, because there is no option. I understand Atletico Madrid not willing to give a player or to send or to sell a player to go to a rival. That's only fair. That's only fair. So Julian Alvarez should have shut up, and now they should face the reality of his actions and do what he has to do.
Sorry, Kay, once it said, I can't remember the whole mechanics of the Griezmann thing that Frank mentioned. What's the difference here between Atleti's stance on Julian Alvarez going to Barcelona and the Antoine Griezmann move to Barcelona? What's the difference in the mechanics of it?
Well, I think part of the difference, actually, to be honest, Craig, is chronology, is the fact that this comes after the Griezmann events. And so, of course, there's a kind of a build-up effect. But I also think there's a question not just about the very fact of a player going and the fact of a player going to Barcelona, but the way in which it's been managed. And there's a sense that Atletico Madrid are irritated by Barcelona's approach, irritated by the way it's been handled by Julian Alvarez, and in particular by his agents, that they had essentially said to the agents, look, if at the end of the season you still think that you want to go, if you're prepared to say so, if we're prepared to do a deal, if you can bring a buying club, we can talk about it. And if that deal is serious, we will sit down and we'll negotiate it. But they didn't get that offer in time, that the comments weren't said at the right time, that things were done, they believe, at least behind their back during the season, when they said, listen, wait until the summer, and in the summer we'll talk about it. That said, I think it's probably quite important to say this, and you know, you three guys who've all played football will know this better than anyone. I think what happens is, of course, that clubs, when it comes to, if you like, the popular judgment of a player, the judgment made by fans, clubs have a huge advantage because they are the club. And clubs quite often work quite hard to make sure that they don't just get the deal that they want, or the lack of the deal they want in this case, but they also win the narrative battle. And I think quite often clubs actually hang players out to dry and make it about them. Now, that's not to say necessarily this is what's happened here, but it is to say that clubs, I think, are conscious about the way that fans respond to sales, and to sales even more than purchases. And so quite often I think what clubs want, and that's one of the things they would have certainly wanted in this case, is in the event of a player leaving, in this case Julian Alvarez, but it's true of any player, to be able to effectively say to the fans, nothing we could do. It wasn't our fault.
Yeah, let's talk about Barcelona. Do they need him? Because he said to be their plan A, Sid. They managed without a proven reference point at the weekend to score 5 against Elche. Do they even need Julian Alvarez this season?
Yeah, I must admit, this was the way I was thinking about it. So you say Robert Lewandowski's gone, Ferran Torres has gone, Marcus Rashford's gone. They've taken 60 goals between them. They haven't signed Julian Alvarez. They don't have a centre forward. And in other news, they scored 5 this weekend. And obviously, you know, part of this is that there is an analytical side to this, which is to say that I think there's an enthusiasm at Barcelona for the idea of doing something that's not enormously dissimilar to what Paris Saint-Germain do, which is to have three forwards who are all essentially wingers, who are going at you all the time, incredibly intense, very direct, very vertical running. But I think Barcelona believe that in key games, yes, they do need a number 9. They do need a different profile of player for playing through the middle. And so yesterday it was quite fun. After the game, Rafinha was asked, well, does this mean that you don't need a number 9? And bear in mind, of course, he's the one that had played through the middle as that number 9. He scored 2 goals. He was absolutely fantastic. And he said, well, look, we trust what Deco, the sporting director, are doing. We trust what the club are doing, and it's up to them. He was then asked, are you comfortable in that position? He said, I'm comfortable in any position on the pitch so long as we're winning.
I know. We saw that interview after the game.
Gordon.
Yeah, he said all the right things. Obviously, he looked quite sharp.
We're going to get a bit more of it later.
Oh, no, more.
Well, it's the same interview, but we have to read it.
Right.
But I just love how he softened that Scouse accent. But the thing is, Sid, being in the job we're in, and Barcelona scored 5 goals, and it was basically the B team at the start, and they left a load of guys out. Everything went swimmingly for them, unlike the struggles of Real Madrid the day before. So everything's positive, but come on. Let's talk about the strop from Lamine Yamal. Come on. What's that all about?
Yeah, why?
I thought you were going to ask about the number 9 and go back to it. And just very briefly, before we talk about Lamine Yamal, I do think it's important, of course, that clubs at this stage of the season, in other words, with the season just about underway but the transfer window not closed yet, don't allow themselves to draw conclusions on the basis of an opening weekend win away at Elche, for example. You know, that doesn't blind them to what they've got. In terms of Lamine Yamal, I think in a way it's relatively easily explained. Obviously, Lamine Yamal comes off the back of the World Cup, not entirely fully fit, in a game in which there's a goal and assist for Adeyemi, there's 2 assists from Gordon, there's 2 goals from Rafinha, there's 2 goals from Firmino. He's the only one that doesn't contribute statistically, which isn't to say that there's no contribution. And I think it's frustration. And I think he didn't like, obviously, the fact that he was withdrawn a little bit early. That's the nature of him. And I think he probably, although I don't suppose he would admit it deep down, might not have particularly enjoyed very much seeing the team play so well once he was off. I don't think it's a big deal, but he certainly wasn't happy. But, you know, if you're a Barcelona fan, you look at that and you think, actually, I quite like the fact that there's a competitive edge to him. I quite like the fact that he's irritated about being taken off. The last thing they want is him thinking, oh, great, I get to sit on the bench for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but you don't want to get to the irritated stage of the Vinicius Jr., the Real Madrid shenanigans and all that. But I think it is difficult sometimes for a young player in particular, and sometimes for senior players, but particularly for young players, that when a manager is looking at a bigger picture, and Stevie's, coached at this side of the pond, when a manager's looking at a bigger picture in a month down the line, or 2 months, or 6 months down the line, and that's why he left some of these players out that have been at the World Cup. And it's maybe one of the reasons that he took Lamine Yamal off. He's had a lot of football. He had a bad hamstring injury. It is a long season. He will be reliant on him. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons that Hansi Flick made that decision. But sometimes as a player, you just can't see it. You just can't see it because you want to be on the field, you want to be doing this, that and the next thing, and you can't see the following week or the following month. And that's going to be interesting because of the options that Hansi Flick has now, and particularly in the wide areas, that Lamine Yamal might see this a lot more, not because he's a bad player, because he's certainly not that, but because Hansi Flick is trying to manage him. Something that they've been criticised before at Barcelona with Pedri, Ansu Fati when he's younger. Not Hansi Flick's problem. He's now trying to manage these players, their time on the field, their injuries. And it will be interesting to see how the players handle the fact that he may either rest them or take them off in some games so that they can work around these problems.
Hansi Flick has become the most important player in this now.
Absolutely.
Because it is a problem. This is the little acorn that could grow into something horrendous. Because at his age, and he's visibly... Listen, there's plenty of players have taken the hump about the explanation that Sid got. He scored, he's come in and he scored, I didn't get the ball enough. Unless Hansi Flick right now takes him aside and says, oi, I don't care you've won the World Cup, I don't care you've done this, I don't care you've done that. This is about us, it's not about you. And the most important thing for you should be the rest of the team as well, not you. So enough. Because if that gets out of hand...
Who brought this negative thing up?
Yeah, exactly. I wonder who would have done that.
No, I tell you what, though.
If he doesn't get sat upon right now, this will become a big thing.
Didn't Barcelona score 5 goals at the weekend?
Yeah.
No, but I tell you what...
But this is the best time to do it, when they score 5.
I'm only bringing it up because I don't have an issue with a player getting frustrated. We've all been there, right? Most of us not with his talent, but we've all been there. What I would say is that Hansi Flick isn't all powerful at Barcelona, but he's got a lot of power. And he's got a lot of power and a lot of gravitas and a lot of respect because of what he's achieved. And thus far, he's micromanaged any scenario that looked like it was going to grow out of hand. He's micromanaged that very well in his time in charge. But this is just another scenario where, as a player gets older and more successful, there is an ego. And sometimes egos have to be knocked down a peg or two. And it's just something for you to watch out as the season goes along. It's not a negative, it's just an observation.
OK, well, let's balance it out, shall we, with some post-match positivity. And boy, was it positivity and praise from Anthony Gordon after his 2 assists in this game. Our Gemma Soler caught up with him afterwards, and her first question was how he fits into this side.
I think it's very easy to feel comfortable in this team because the guys are amazing people, but more importantly, amazing players. You see the ability for some of the goals, some of the creativity in the team. It makes my job so much more easy because in the end I just have to run in behind and Pedri will find me with the pass.
So almost your first goal, your first ball, you have the chance to shoot, but you decide to give it to Fermin. Why?
I think it's the right decision. I think if Fermin had the ball and I was in his position, I would want him to pass. I think it's the correct football decision. We're a team, it's not about me scoring or Fermin or anybody else. We make the right decision as often as possible and try and get as many goals as possible.
Sid, I don't know if you saw the full interview, but we were saying it would be a ding, ding, ding. He mentioned Pedri, he mentioned Lamine Yamal, he mentioned Deco. If you'd never heard whistles like that at the Metropolitano, I wonder if you've ever heard such positivity in a post-match interview before.
Well, do you know what? Let's take that ding, ding, ding part on, and you're right that he's saying the right things. And I would argue that in that assist that he gives, and he says there it's the right decision, I also think it's the right decision politically. What a brilliant thing to do on your debut, to have the chance for a debut goal and to effectively make a statement to all of your teammates around you that says, not just in saying the team matters more, but in demonstrating it. And I actually think in that sense, and I don't want to imply that this was a kind of a cynical decision, because I still think it's the right decision, but in that sense, it's a way of saying to teammates, look, not only do I believe in the team, I'm going to prove that I believe in the team. Here you go. This is for Fermin, it's not for me.
We said that yesterday, didn't we, when we watched the game and then we heard them speak. Stevie and I, we were like, do you know what? That was smart, because he was sending a message out to say that I'm here for the team and it's not, I want to do well, and I want to be as good as I can be, but I'm here for the betterment of the bigger picture and Barcelona, which all sounds very politically correct and all that sort of nonsense. But it was smart. It was just to say to his teammates, listen, I'm here, roll my sleeves up, and it's not all about me. That was pretty good. But then again, it was Elche.
Yeah, it was Elche. Frank, some have criticised his transfer, but we got to see how valuable he can be.
Oh yes, and I'm really fond of a player like that, because we feel that the guy is smart on the field, he's smart in his life, and he proved it. It was the biggest political assist in the world that I ever seen. You know, you sign for a club. How many players, and I can name 100 players who could have tried to score a goal on their first game for a new club, for a big signing to prove that they are very efficient. No, the guy gives to Fermin. And I got up from my sofa and I clap, and you are the most smartest person in the world, because really, that was exquisite. I love that.
Yeah, we also
How come Sid doesn't talk like that?
Speaking Spanish.
Sid, how come you don't talk like Anthony Gordon? How come you don't?
Listen, if I started doing a Scouse accent now, it would offend so many people. It's probably not a good idea.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Frank, Craig and Stevie are here to answer
I've got a
your
question
questions.
before we start.
Go on then.
There wasn't time in the show for me to bring it up.
Oh,
I know
But
it.
it kind of irritates me. Go on, what do you think it is?
Something to do with penalties?
No.
Okay.
So, you know we showed the goals from the MLS game?
yes.
And they go straight to the bench. And there's 8 coaches all in a circle hugging it. When did that start? It doesn't matter now. It doesn't matter. Every single league in the world now, every single person, coach on the bench, are all hugging each other. When did this start?
It's because of all the set-piece coaches and the finishing coaches and all those who are responsible, Stevie.
I mean, Sarah, it doesn't matter now. Every single league 8 coaches are all on the sideline, hugging and dancing and jumping around.
They've got to share the happiness.
Oh, for goodness sake, come on.
Each of them is as important as the others.
Okay,
what did you and Mariner used to do?
Oh, we were there. All right, no bad.
That was nice. Frank, first question's for you. Is it time for Chelsea to finally replace Sanchez as the #1 keeper? He's been there for a few seasons now, has been mediocre in all of them, and had another mistake today. At what point is someone like Emi Martinez brought in, or at least someone else who could compete?
Yeah, it's time to change. During the show, Stevie said something very important, that every time we were talking, and it was a subject of getting rid of Sanchez and maybe getting a new keeper, he was having a hell of a game. And he was given another chance and another chance, and something bad happened again, and he was again at the edge. But it's time for that, because we saw today that we cannot keep on working with very good players and having doubts at the back, because I was a centre back, and I tell you, if you play with a bad goalkeeper, well, a not so good goalkeeper, I'll try to be nice, behind you, you don't feel confident, because you know that you have to be successful to everything you decide to do, otherwise that would be a goal. So if you cannot rely on your goalkeeper, it's a problem. Emi Martinez, he's a great goalkeeper. I don't like the guy, but he's a great goalkeeper.
There's talk of him going to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Because they're even more desperate for a goalkeeper. But yeah, who knows?
Well, funny that you should mention Spurs. For all, who had the most disappointing start to the season this past weekend?
Did we know that yesterday?
You guys were asked, was it more disappointing Manchester United or Tottenham Hotspur, wasn't it?
So it was some.
Well, I think Stevie said it in yesterday's show. Roberto De Zerbi, who's, I think most of us think he's a pretty good coach, looked dumbfounded by what he was watching. Now, they have other players to come in and come back, and there are a lot of new players. There was a new partnership at the back. Well, it was a new back four, apart from Archie Gray. But boy, it was bad. I mean, real bad. So their next game's going to be, and I've no idea who it's against, but that's going to be really interesting to see if there's a bounce back or not.
Definitely Spurs.
Frank, do you agree, Spurs?
I agree. Even if I think about Michael Carrick, and he said that it's never easy to play the first game away from home against a promoted club, but I think Manchester United must be very disappointed as well. But yes, comparing to what happened to Spurs and what happened last season, you were expecting something. Maybe not the best game ever, but something. And we saw nothing because we didn't see any spirit. And the soul that they were looking for is not there anymore, still. So, yeah, I will go for Spurs.
So they've got 2 home games coming up next. First in the EFL Cup against Charlton, and then they've got Newcastle coming to visit them.
Charlton, who beat West Ham at the weekend. We've got Newcastle coming.
Yeah.
Newcastle, who were better than Spurs, but they're a club. Disarray is a strong word, but it's a club that are certainly selling their best assets, and they've lost their manager. If they were to, is that at Tottenham?
Yes.
If they were to come down to London and win, in the kind of fragile state that they're in, won't be a good start, would it?
Okay.
It's probably a good couple of games for them, though.
Yeah.
So, because you'd expect them to beat Charlton. So you play your best team against Charlton, you get a win behind you, and then you play Newcastle. This is a good game, because at the end of the day, Newcastle, all they did was sit at home and try and catch Liverpool on the break. And
which they'll do, which they will do.
They're 100% going to do at Tottenham. So I think these are 2 good games for De Zerbi to get his team going. Because there's no question, Spurs, as bad as they were at the weekend, I think Spurs are favourites to beat Newcastle at home next week.
Okay. Which player is in a worse situation with their supporters? Enzo Fernandez with Chelsea or Julian Alvarez with Atleti?
Oh, that's easy. It's Alvarez all day and every day. I think Chelsea would sell Fernandez, probably. I mean, Alonso might not want to, but I think the club would. Whereas the scenario at Atleti in Spain is it feels real personal now between everybody involved. So I don't think it's even close.
Yeah. Was there something you wanted to say on that earlier in the show, Frank, on the Julian Alvarez situation? With Diego Simeone saying that they decided for him not to be part of the centre circle where the fans are all saying thank you, sorry, the players are all saying thank you to the fans. Do you think that was the right decision and to make that public too?
No, I think he should have said to Alvarez to go with the other player. If you go together, you don't separate somebody to the rest of the team. I think it's nobody's going to boo him, you know, because he's with his friends, his teammates. So that was a mistake from the club, and he has to go public and to explain, well, that's our fault. We decided that. Stop talking about that, you know, let it go, play him if you want to play him, if he's good enough to play, ready to play, but put him with the rest of the team. That was a bad decision. If it's athletic decision, that was a bad decision.
Okay. Stevie, why would Liverpool get rid of Gakpo now? Is Harvey Elliott missing?
Is Harvey Elliott missing? What does that mean?
Well, he's not missing, is he? So why would
they get rid of Gakpo? How can they? They can't possibly get rid of Gakpo. He's the only player from yesterday that actually showed anything. That would be just madness to let Gakpo go right now. Absolutely madness. So 1,000% no. Absolutely not.
Craig, any chance that Hull City can replicate what Sunderland did last season?
No. Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Nope.
Nope.
How are they going to score a goal?
No.
How are they going to score a goal? Hull. Honestly.
Set pieces.
I mean,
it was a great win for them, don't get me wrong, but there's... No. Sunderland are a much better side. They come up a much better side. That was momentum, you know, enthusiasm for the scenario. Man United rolled up, thought it was going to be a piece of cake, walk in the park. It wasn't. So everything fell their way, and that fair play to them. They deserve to get that. There's going to be a lot tougher days ahead for them, for sure, but it's a great start.
Yeah, certainly was. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. That's it for the latest edition of Extra Time. Make sure to join us every single day on ESPN FC.